Hi, we're here at the Old Franklin County Jail and we're going to do a tour and we're going to take you with us, so let's go. This is part of the old jail, the outside of it. Yeah, let me get the sign here. It is.
This door was an original door, and here's the key. And we normally don't have it open, but right now they're giving newspapers away, old newspapers that have been scanned into a computer.
Oh.
And so people are coming in and out to take newspapers. But you can see they had a peephole here. So they would decide it would only open from this side, originally the way it was. These walls, some of them are 36 inches wide, or deep. They're just very, very, this building was very well built. Where we're standing now, we'll see later, there's a dungeon underneath. So, come on back this way, and let me tell you what we have. Now, this, at one time, was the warden and his wife's living quarters. And this was their kitchen. And since I'm new, I go off my notes because I forget things otherwise. Okay. Now I didn't tell you, this building is what they call a Georgian style. So it's like if you cut it in half, it's the same on both sides.
Okay.
It was built that way. There are a lot of things in here that you may not know what they are. Let's see. Now the jail was built in 1818. Are you familiar with the spinning wheel?
Yeah.
Well, you know that at one time, the people around here, this was a money-making thing. They grew flax, and they made material from it. And then when they added wool to it, it was even warmer for the people. And it was called linsey woolsey. You've probably heard of that. And that's how they put the two fabrics together. Now over here, let me get with that. A lot of the things in here, let's see, the bench. A lot of the things we have on loan from the Worcetown Bank. I saw you had the bank card there. They had a museum and they loaned us a lot of things. It's hard to imagine that there they would have had a big museum, but there's a lot of nice pieces that we have that was theirs. Okay, now, in the kitchen here, it would have been what the sheriff and his wife in the 1900s, the way it would have been. If they were making bread for a lot of people, it would have been put in here. And then that little trowel would be what you would scrape it with. And this, if you had a lot of loaves, you'd be using an oven peel here, this to take it out, put it in. Over here, I had some Amish children here last week, and they knew about this for apple butter.
Oh.
That's what that was used for. Now, let me see here. There's a Betty lamp, and that's the thing that, okay, this was new at the time because it was used, and it had fish oil that they used in it, and it came from Germany. And it was because they had a wick that would hold, And before, they didn't have something like that. And it made it last a lot longer. Now this was used for popcorn and for things that you could put in the fireplace to make. But this was something it was an improvement over candles, because that oil would burn and you would have light longer. Now they have some pretty dishes over here. I always like them. And these are from some families that the Lamage over here is a gift from a Kramer family in Chambersburg. And over here, this one, I don't know if I know for sure who had that or not, but they were all donations. Now, I don't know do you know what would be the spider if you had that fireplace? Which item would be what called the spider? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it would be this item right here. Right here.
Okay.
And
Oh,
then
okay.
they set their things on it, and that's what they called it because it looked sort of like a spider. But there's a lot of tools and things they would have used that would be in the 1900s. Okay. Now the corner cupboard, that's another item that was from the Orstown Bank. Now we'll go into what would have been their parlor. Now this is from the Chambers family, and this relative, she had this chest, and she was married to a Ludlow, and I don't know if you're familiar with Civil War things or not, or
Yeah, some things,
have you
yeah.
ever heard of the Cincinnati group? She and her husband went to Ohio, and they helped form the city of Cincinnati, and they had it wouldn't have been Civil War, it'd been Revolutionary War. They would have, they had a group of soldiers that were really supposed to be special, and they were from this group. They were riflemen, and they were called the Cincinnati group. And here we have different things of a Chambers family. And this is very interesting. You can see Benjamin and his wife and the different children. These pictures are very nice. Something that's interesting, most of the houses at this time had a cupboard back in here, and they often had a rifle or guns back in that area there. Now, if you really are interested, you can come over and you can see the different chamber families on the chart. And I looked at that the other week. It's very, very interesting, because there was, Benjamin. Then he had a son, Benjamin, and then, and they all were very well to do. Chambersburg, the Chambers family, they got their land 3 different ways. There were lotteries at the time, and there were, because they didn't have the Indians, they didn't have a pact with some of the Indians. So some of the land that people got right away really shouldn't have been given right away, because they didn't have an agreement with the Indians for it. But there was 3 different ways you could get land, and one of them, you had to build a cabin, and you had to have a 16 by 16 foot cabin, had to be stone or brick, and with a chimney, and it had to be built within 2 years.
Wow.
And it doesn't sound that hard to me, but only one person did it. I mean, I guess it was a lot harder than it was supposed to be, because the only person that did it was this man that wanted to build a tavern, and his name was Patrick Jack, and he did it. So he got his land that way. But I just didn't understand why it would be that hard. But apparently it was.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is another interesting story. During the Civil War, when the Confederates came and they were burning Chambersburg,
Yeah.
as big as this is, they got this out of here.
Wow.
When they got it, they took it to Harpers. I mean, I can't imagine even moving this thing. It's really heavy, but they did it, and they took it and got it out. And then when it was over, they brought it back, and we got it back again. But you know, any of these rooms, you can look around at the pictures, and there's a lot of history. That's for certain. The Thompsons, that would be that battalion I was telling you about. They were real fancy. They wore like the Cincinnati, you know, the big plumes and stuff.
Okay.
And these were their flags. It doesn't show a picture of them that way. Okay. We're going to go through here. Now, this is our big shop, but when it was the old jail, it was the administrative office. And one of the things that's supposed to be a silly story, I mean, to me, I don't tell it, you know, the kids don't get it, but this man was supposed to go to jail, and he hadn't paid support to his wife and 7 children. Well, he had this new lady that wanted to marry him, and so they allowed them to be married here. She worked somewhere, she was only off for 3 days, but I thought, why in the world would you want to marry somebody with 7 children that you're not paying any support for? But they were married in this room.
Wow.
It's part of the history of this room. And all this stuff is for sale. We can come back later if you're interested in anything. Now, are you from the Chambersburg area?
Yeah, we live in Mercersburg.
Well, I can remember, now I'm a lot older than you are, and when I was a kid, I remember this Wagaman's drugstore. It was on the square in Chambersburg, and a lot of the things here are from that drugstore. Trying to see how long it was open. Okay, it opened in the 1800s and didn't close till 1966.
Oh, wow.
So that is a long time. And it didn't develop like some where they put in soda counters and things like that. They kept it as a drugstore. These lights are very special. When settlers would come through with their wagons, sometimes there would be a disease in the area.
Oh, I
And
see.
if they had this color up, they knew to keep traveling. There might have been smallpox or something like that in the area. If it was green, then they knew it was safe to stay.
Huh.
Oh.
This was a fly catcher. And of all places, it was at the Chambersburg Hospital. Now, how would you like to be sick, and the only way they kept flies off of you is with a fly catcher like this?
That's weird.
Wow.
Now, back when Wagaman's would have first started, this is their book. When someone would come in, they would tell you what was, you know, the matter with them, and he would write what all different things he put together to give you a medicine. So if you came back again, he would have to look in his, if it worked, he would look in his book to see whether, what he had given him. But it's very interesting old book of all these prescriptions.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? Now, a lot of the things that they gave people now we would consider poison
Oh,
because they were very dangerous, and they didn't realize it at the time, and that's just what they did. Look back up on this wall over here. I think this is interesting. There's a picture of some of the doctors that used to be in the area. And then up there, look at the different drugs that they gave people. So rabies, vaccines, and all these different things. Now this lady, I'm not familiar with her, but apparently she was a doctor and this was her medical bag. And in fact, I mean, that would have been one of the few women at that time. I know my husband has a relative that was a doctor back in Hagerstown, but I mean, it was unusual. And then here, if somebody needed glasses, look at the different lenses they would try to get you,
okay.
so that you had what you needed. Now, I always tell the children, would you like to sit here and have that dentist work on you?
Ooh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
our drills go so fast, you don't, but if you had something like that just drilled your teeth, I don't think I would like that at all.
They probably had something to give you to.
I don't know.
Wow.
When you watch these westerns, they don't. I
Yeah, they
don't.
did.
I don't know. Yeah, you would think they'd had something, but over there's the drill with the foot pedal.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, yeah.
That looks nasty.
It was used in around 1910, it says.
Oh.
Things have changed.
Oh, yeah.
I better close that book. It's so old. I don't want anything to happen to it before we go home.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what they used to weigh the drugs and to
okay.
crush them. But it's a very different time than today.
So you have a tooth power grinder back here.
Yeah, it's hard to tell what they put in to grind. I mean,
Yeah.
really. Okay, now over here is the Civil War Gallery.
Oops.
We'll come back this way. Are you familiar with John Brown at all?
Yeah.
Okay, you know, we have the John Brown house down the road, or just about 4 houses down. Well, when he had the raid at Harpers Ferry, some of the
Okay.
people escaped, and then they were caught. And the one man, John Cook, it's now a ladies' restaurant, but this is where they had him locked up during that time. I think they found him in the Mount Alto area. And then when he was caught, he was taken back down with the rest of the people. Now, these are some pictures of the burning of Chambersburg, how it looked. You can just take a minute and look. I mean, when you think about it, most of the people, their whole lives were destroyed. I mean, they lost everything. And I don't think very many of them got money back that they hoped to get back from the government. And now this is one, you can go in if you want to, but this is a cell that was in the original jail, what you have.
Wow.
Ooh, wow. This is all the woods.
It's probably better than some others.
Yeah.
Mm. They gave them a basin there of water, I guess. Mm.
It has some stories here about some of the people. One of them was called around 1819, David Lewis. He was called Lewis the Robber, and he would be on the highways and he would rob people. And he managed to escape. I'm not sure how, but then he was taken to Belleville, and he was put in a cell there, and he actually died there because he'd been shot, and then he got gangrene. But we have some people that are notorious, you know, that have been in this jail. Now, when the John Brown was down here, he did have Frederick Douglass come to talk to him somewhere in Chambersburg, but he did not want to go along with the way. I mean, he wanted people to not to have slaves, but he did not want to do things the way John Brown was planning. You know, he was pretty much a fanatic. And even though he agreed with what he wanted done, he didn't agree with the way they were doing it, and he didn't cooperate. So you might want to look at some of these pictures.
Reserve cemetery.
Have you ever heard of Libby Prison? That's
No.
one that was very bad in the South.
Well,
Most
there's
people
another
didn't live through
Yeah.
it. And it was saying here that this man was captured in Chickamauga, and then he went to Libby Prison. And it's amazing that he was able to escape. But he probably would have died if he hadn't escaped. It was a terrible prison. They didn't have food, they didn't have medicine, and it was very bad. This is very interesting. This lady's name is Louisa Brand, and when the Confederates came to Chambersburg and they were going to burn her house, she took this flag and wrapped it around her, and she had a pistol, and they didn't burn her house. Now, our director found this flag upstairs in a little box, and she found out what it was, and she sent it to people that they conserved things, and they repaired it the best they could, and it's really a monument to this woman and the burning of Chambersburg, because you don't find many things like that. And that
Yeah,
there's
deal with
some other people, they're working on that one. And this is a man that, this knight, Daniel Ridgway Knight, and he did different...
That's my maiden name.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you need to get that for sure. Yeah. But, and that is, I'm trying to think where that is.
Daniel
Okay,
Ridgway.
you can see, let me see. Oh, the Cellar's Funeral Home. It's up by there.
Might have to look him up.
Yes, yeah, that would be a good thing to do. These are very beautiful too. And the questers were people that fixed things that needed to be repaired and fixed and used to. Now, have you ever heard of the Jameson? You know, they went during the back when the Indians were still around. Mary Jamerson is the portrait of what it's supposed to be her. She was born on a ship coming from Ireland to America with her family, and she was captured in 1758. And the rest of her family were killed on the journey. And she was taken to the Senecas. And the Senecas, they took her she went to another tribe. And she eventually married a Native American. And then he was killed. And she married another Native American. And she had children. And she didn't want to come back to the white nation. I mean, that was her life from the time she was 15. And she was a large landowner. She was naturalized as an American in 1817. And she moved to a reservation when they moved the Indians. And she lived there, I think, until she was about 90.
Wow.
It's very different. And then over here, have you ever heard of the Enoch Brown School Massacre?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what this portrays. Everyone, the schoolmaster begged not to have the children killed, but they went ahead and scalped them, and one young man survived, and that's what this is depicting. And here are some Indian artifacts. I'm not sure. This is the door. I think I have to go around to the other door. It's not open. But I know my mother, her father was a farmer out at Letterkenny, and they would get, still at that time, they would get arrowheads that they would find when they would be plowing. And so I have a box on them at home, but it is interesting. And I mean, it was their land. You know, I don't like to watch these movies with the Indians because they were, their land was being taken. He married an Indian, and I read the story. It's really interesting. He didn't care that, but I think he had more than one Indian because that was the way they could. At the time it was all right. Let's see, we'll come around this way. Hopefully I can get this one. Now, this was a history. At one time, the railroad, we had a railroad station in Chambersburg. I wish it was still here. Yeah. I can remember as a kid, my mother, they would have excursions, and we would take the train, it would be, here in Chambersburg, and we would go to Harrisburg, we went to Atlantic City. There was different things. There's a picture of the station, the way I remember it. And it's down there where the Kraft Press building is. Do you know where that is? On Lincoln Way.
Oh, okay.
Before you get to the post office, it was down there. And things like that, I wish they had.
That would have been nice, yeah. Jump on and go to Harrisburg.
Oh, I know. I'm sure different than the way they have it now. Now, I wonder if I can do that. Oh, I've never done this before.
No.
It was always open. Gosh. Well, we're going
Heavy
to go
door.
out a minute.
It is a heavy door.
Oh, wow, bars.
All right. This was the courtyard.
Oh.
And when the prisoners had a chance to go out, they were allowed to go out here on this courtyard. Now, I was told that the black prisoners were kept down here, and then later, when this building was built, then they had the women clear on the top floor. But the gallows here weren't very well built, and there were 3 people that were executed here. The one man had killed his girlfriend, another man had killed his wife, and another man had been in a knife fight and killed somebody. But what happened was, when they went to execute them, it wasn't built right, and they didn't die right away, which was not the way it was supposed to be done. So they stopped using it. It wasn't right. And it wasn't too long after that either that Pennsylvania didn't allow this kind of execution. So at that time, Washington County, Maryland wanted it. So it was taken over there. I guess they apparently still used it. And then later, it was in 1976 that we asked to have it back so that it could be here at the jail. But this was the oldest jail in Pennsylvania, because from the time it started until when they stopped using it, it was like, I think it was 157 years. So that's just not something that you have very often. You might want to look over there at that article in the paper. See what it is. Now, which one he was? What did he do?
That was William Reed.
Okay, and he was the one, let's see here. Reed. That was funny. The one man, he said his wife fell and hit her head. And when they did an autopsy, which I was surprised they did that, she was poisoned.
Oh.
It wasn't the way it
You lied about that one.
No. Okay, the Reed, he's the one that murdered his girlfriend.
Because she was...
You can see the great big, thick 20-foot enclosure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure they didn't jump out.
Yeah, that's right. funny. Should I get this back in? No. There.
Oh, there we go.
We're going to turn right and go through this room here. And we're going to go to the newer building. Oh, we're making, I got the door open. I'm proud of him. He's president of our society. I thought it was very interesting. Now, this isn't something a lot of people did. But if you look at this map here, it tells you where everything, all the pictures, and I thought they were very interesting. If there's an area that interests you, you can just find it then
Oh, wow.
on the wall. But this is, they have a lot of different exhibitions in this room that you change. But some of these pictures are amazing to me. I looked at some, my family's from Chambersburg area, and I saw there was some over in here that I thought were very interesting. I think this one right here was what they called the old hotel.
I went in the corner.
Okay,
We
we'll go.
got a lot of snow back then.
Well, yeah. Driving, look at those little wheels. Okay, this will take us to the new edition. This was in 1880. This was built. And one of the reasons it was built was because at that time they were reforming prisons. They didn't want them to go through what what you'll see later downstairs. Now this was made that the kids often went, and if you close it, you just can't get your arm around. You can't get your arm out through there and around. See, it locks out that way,
Oh, wow.
and
They
you
had it
can't
figured out.
do it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can go in.
Everyone's get in there.
You can get a picture of it.
Get in there.
Oh, get in there.
Yeah.
There were 30 cells, and for this reform, they piped in music from a church across the street so that they could have religious music on Sundays, and they did different things. Now there were some riots, and people were put on bread and water. You often hear that.
I hear that.
About it.
I grew up hearing that bread.
And there were some suicides and some killings and some lynchings and things like that did happen. There was one time, the story's funny, they went on a strike because they said their oatmeal had things in it that shouldn't have been in their oatmeal. Maybe it was weevils, I don't know. But they went on a strike. Now this is telling about 3 people, mainly, that were famous in Chambersburg. Nellie Fox, as a kid, I used to always, the White Sox he played for. But you can just take a look around. I know my grandfather was on a team. My husband played baseball till he was in his 50s in different leagues. They had church leagues and, organizations had leagues, but it was very popular. And when I had these little Amish children last week, that was something they were really interested in, because so many of the other things they didn't know about. But I said, does anybody play baseball? And they all put their hands up. They played baseball. So, let's see. And some famous people came here. Do you know where Henninger Field is?
We've heard of it.
Okay. If you go, let's see. If you're going down, you're starting to get down Philadelphia Avenue.
Okay.
And you turn left. Right there at the first light.
Okay.
There was a big field back there, and I know my husband played ball there before.
Oh,
But
wow.
they, these teams would come in and play the Chambersburg teams. And Babe Ruth was there, and there were other famous baseball players that I really don't know. But they came, right here, you can see Satchel Paige. people that were very popular because one of the leagues owned, I think, the Chambersburg Maroons, is what it was. But that would have been exciting, you know, to have a big team come and play. I think that would have been, but it would have gotten a lot of people to come.
Public Square, 1885.
And this Jack Law, I didn't know him, but he was a coach that for years. Right there it talks about him. He was famous from Chambersburg, and then Mrs. Nellie Fox.
Okay.
I have a Nellie Fox ball that all the White Sox signed.
Oh, wow.
One of the years, I think they got the pennant.
Oh, okay.
But, and then you know the bowling alley,
Yeah.
you know, is named after him. But it's interesting that, I mean, St. Thomas, I guess they still have that sign as you go in, the home of Nellie
I think
Fox.
so.
I think they
Probably.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so. But they put different exhibits. Now, do you know this Brookins? My husband knows him. He played, and now he works, I think, for Martin's. I think he drives one of the Martin's trucks. Mm-hmm. But it is. It's interesting. Now we're going to go on down to the dungeon.
The dungeon.
And it was. I wouldn't have went.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. There's some, I saw the bark out front, and I was told there's some gentlemen that come, I think each year, and do some work for free
Wow.
for the society. Mm-hmm. I see other hostas coming up. I'm sure hoping mine will come. I started a hosta garden last year, and I'm really tickled with it. I want it to spread. The ladies I bought some of, you go ahead, I bought some of the stuff from said, you know, the more you put in, the less weeds you get. There's no room.
Pictures of it.
And then down these awful steps, be very careful.
All right.
Oh, they are. For me, I know I really the 1818 dungeon. Now I hope the lights are on because yes, thank goodness. Be very careful. I'm going to have you go first.
All right.
And just hold on. This little half steps where you touch it.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Wow. Okay.
Now, of course, this was before that addition I showed you. Can you imagine coming in here? These lights would have been here. It would be dark and damp and horrible. I mean, really, really horrible.
I should bring my light with
I
me.
mean, you keep going and I'll show you the cells.
Oh, wow.
Now, have you ever been here for Halloween?
No.
They have lines of people. They have Halloween things here.
Okay.
And I guess people jump out of these different cells and so forth.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's
That's
very
interesting.
popular. Very
Yeah.
popular. Mm-hmm. And then they had some of those ghost hunters here not too long ago. We're going to go to the right
Okay.
and watch your step here.
Oh, my.
And these were the cells. Now, do you see in the middle, they have them chained to the bolted there.
Wow.
And you can see how uncomfortable that would be
Yeah.
compared to the 1880 when they did the new advances. But and then the only thing here was this and the bucket and the chain. Now over here in this other cell, I think there's some graffiti. And what they're thinking, some of this stuff, in particular, this down here, they found some symbols like that in some places in Mercersburg, in a house. And they wonder if it was Underground Railroad. I don't know. And then you can see there's a couple places. Let me see if it says what was on the walls. Yeah, it says Jack Penwood, and then the anchor and the star that we just saw. And the same symbols are in the attic, it says, of a restaurant in Mercersburg.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
And that left them believe that maybe it was the Underground Railroad, because they could have stayed here during the day and then travel at night. And I know at one time, from what I was told, the jailer or the sheriff was against slavery. So they think he would have helped, if he could, the Underground Railroad. And then if we go out, this Rogers Town, there's a fireplace over here. Down this way. There's this fireplace. And this fireplace has a room behind it. If you go in now, go in this way.
Okay.
See, they keep telling me that there was a room, but I don't see it. That you could get in. I'm going to have to ask. From what I understood, it was right in through here. And they could get into the back, and you could hide people in that room behind that large stairway. But I asked a couple times about it because I just don't see the entrance. But maybe the entrance was filled in too. Now there is a story. There's always some stories you hear about, but right here. There was a story, let me see if I can find it and tell you about it, that,
Might have been a building.
well, there were two men in a business together, and I'm not sure what kind of business, but the one man was having an affair with the other man's wife, and he got tricked to come in here. And they said they never saw him after that. So they don't know if somebody tricked him into the room and he was stuck or what happened. But that's a legend that I've heard about. I would not want to be down here, for sure.
No.
I mean, you figured there would be no lights except that little bit from the windows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would be cold, dark. No. Not very good. Well, we're going to go back up out of here.
All right.
You go ahead. Yeah, I like these better than the other ones.
Oh, yeah.
Here's some of the other cells.
Oh, wow. Can you imagine crossing through these doors?
Now this is the, what did you say?
Can you imagine crawling through those doors every day?
Can what?
Can you imagine crawling through those doors every day?
Oh, no. And I was told, hello, I was told that's why they were made that too, that if a warden or someone opened it, they weren't as likely to be able to jump out at you if they had to be crouched down. Yeah. Now this is all climate control, because these are things they wanted to preserve. And just go ahead and look at some of the things.
So with all these cells, you guys have a key to that? Or is it just permanently locked?
I'm not sure.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. These were 1818 cells.
Oh, okay.
And the things that they had in this collection, like the material, they have it controlled so that they won't deteriorate, these old papers and pictures.
Oh, there's Freemason. Yeah.
My father was a Mason.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. And my uncle, one of my uncles was a Mason. And then we have some interesting flowers. Animals.
Wow.
Made into lamps. Oh my goodness.
That's different.
I don't know if I mean, I didn't think about it, but they had wooden canteens. And then there's a gun cabinet over here. All kinds of rifles and guns. Things, again, from the Horstown collection. Now that room we saw that was called the Meinhardt room, and this is Mr. Reinhardt, Thomas Zeno Reinhardt, 1867 to 1962.
Wow.
I didn't know who he was.
Chambersburg.
We're going to go. If you went that way, there's a room in there with research. You know, if you need to do any kind of research, the research books are in there, and then there's an office. But we're going to go to the music room. In here is the geological.
Oh, okay.
All the different books are in here that you can do research. You can come in and do these things for free.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Here. What is this? How do I get that open? I've never had to do this before. I see. My word.
Oh, wow.
You can see you're the first people here today.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Okay, I'm going to go over here and turn the light on.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That room. Is there a light over there? I don't see one. This is outside the door.
There you got it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Now, this particular room, when it was a jail, it was used by juveniles, and this is where they brought them. It said in 1968, now the jail closed in 1970, 1968 they set a fire in the chimney of these kids. So I'm not sure they used it after that. But here are some of the things. The small organ came from nurses' school in Chambersburg at the hospital. The pump organ was from the First Lutheran church. I think that's the pump organ, isn't it? Does it say it came from the Lutheran church?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
1890.
Mm-hmm. It says you can play this cylinder. This is, 1905, and it was a gift. And they bring out these cylinders, and then when you chose the music you wanted, and you put it in, and that's how it played. It's very different, but it is funny. Before I retired, I took a record player to school. Kids had never seen a record. They had no idea what a record player was. It is, when you figure you've gone for the CDs and DVDs and now you don't really need anything. You just have Amazon.
It's like the rotary phone.
Right. But here are some, let's see if it says, okay, and this was made, around 1905. And it says the melodrama. I didn't see it. There's an accordion. I've never seen one like that. I don't know. I don't see there's the drums. Maybe that's something that's moved because it said the melodrama in the corner. I don't know. I'll have to ask about it. They were saying who donated it. So then this is the last room. This is a very special room. It's a Victorian bedroom. And a friend of mine died this last year, and she donated some of these things in here. Her name was Joanne Bowen. I don't know if you know her or not. She was in Audubon Society with me. I know one day I thought I had a Cooper's hawk, and I called her, and she came right out, and she just listened. Yes, that's a Cooper's hawk. She really knew. But this room was donated by her, and the Windsor rocker was said to have been this one over here. That George Washington, when he stayed at Skinner's Inn on his way to the Whiskey Rebellion, when they didn't want to pay taxes, that was something that he set up. This one over here is beautiful, and that was painted in 1941 by Ira Eversole, and apparently he's well known. I guess if you see something that's similar to that, it may have been done by him. Now I have a chair just plain, exactly like that, and my mother-in-law gave it to us, and it was her grandmother's, and she said, can you imagine, she rocked like 12 children on that with no armrests.
Wow.
Which it's much handier if you have armrests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have one that is like that. Now back here, this high chest, Sesame Family, and then the gift of the hoax. It's a beautiful big piece. And then I think this is so pretty. Now I have like the mirror and brush. I told you that one of my husband's relatives was an early doctor. It was interesting. In their family, all the things that were left only went to the nieces. The men didn't get any. They passed it down through the family, and my mother-in-law ended up with those. And I've got to decide one of the nieces, somebody in the family to give it to, because I just have a son, and he shouldn't have it. It should go to one of the nieces.
Yeah.
But this is such a pretty room.
I see there's ratings on that.
Yes, it would have been part of the, I imagine, juveniles.
Wow.
Yeah, look at what they carved. Can you get in there to see the carvings?
That's pretty neat.
And you can
see this one.
When you think about it, now, did you know who were on her bus?
Yeah.
And he got free.
That's what I was saying. I couldn't believe that when I heard that.
Yeah.
I don't know how he did that because, you know, he escaped from here. He was a trustee here. And when he was a trustee, apparently, he was on this, and you could go across the bridge, and he would play bingo down here at the Catholic Church. And one time he was there, and he was garbage there. But then, you know, he shot that off-duty policeman in Hagerstown. He escaped at Hagerstown, and he was in Florida, and I think he was jailed there, and he got out. I couldn't believe that this year they let him out.
Yeah. One good ordinance or something.
It was he's 73.
Yeah.
I don't know where he's living. It didn't say the article I looked at. But I know that the police in Hagerstown were very angry, and the family of the man he killed. I mean, they were shooting at each other, but still, you don't hear it. I mean, I'd like to know why.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I never read anywhere where it said why. And then I wonder if he'll be in trouble before he dies. I don't know.
Yeah. And he was in here. That's something.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. He was. One back, you know.
Yeah, that's.
Okay. Oh, this is that one. Okay, I was looking for it over through here. And these are interesting pictures too. Brass band. Well, you know, St. Thomas always had a band.
Yeah.
I mean, and they would have parades. I don't know that they do anymore. That Mr. McCurdy used to be the director, and but I don't know. But a lot of these small communities had their own bands. That's okay. We're gonna go back.
What do you have?
I do. I've got 2 new hips, and I don't want any more.
Oh.
Well, this is sort of where we started. I was worried about that because I just
Well, I hope you enjoyed the video of the old jail. It was very interesting to see, to go through and see what it was like in there. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.